If you have any questions at the end of the webinar, you will be able to use the Q&A function. So keep an eye out for that, pop your questions in there. And tonight's crew will be answering questions specifically about the Batten School of Leadership and Public Policy. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to the team from the Batten School who are here to talk to you about all that you can expect from in preparation to apply to the Batten School in the future. So Anne and Courtney, I will turn it over to you all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anne Carter Mulligan. I am the Director of Undergraduate Admissions at the Batten School. I am joined by my wonderful colleague, Courtney. As Sarah mentions, Courtney is the Assistant Director of Admissions at Batten. We will also feature a couple special guests at the end of the session for the Q&A and have a little bit of a conversation with them. So you're in for a treat tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. This program, as Sarah noted, is intended to introduce you to the school, prepare you for course enrollment, which will happen during your summer orientation session. We would also love to see you on grounds when you're here for orientation. We are hosting information sessions where we'll go into more detail about our school each session. For most of them, those take place on day 2 in Garrett Hall, which is the lovely columned building you can see on this slide. For those later sessions, I think H, J, and K, they happen at an alternative time and location, so be sure to check your schedule for that. I hope you will join us on grounds. So as I mentioned tonight, I'll share a few slides. We'll turn to Q&A. Feel free to add those questions to Q&A at any time. We can answer some of them in the chat. We can answer them live. We'll get to those at the end of the session. So let's dive right into the content. There are quite a few ways to study public policy at UVA, perhaps even more than you might initially think. We really like to say at Batten that policy is everywhere. So you can study history, economics, computer science, data science. You can be pre-health, pre-law, and you will be prepared for an eventual career that grapples with policy in some way. So as you think about what you might like to study at UVA, I want to first bring your attention to a couple of specialized policy majors in the College of Arts and Sciences, in addition to ours, so that you can seek out some more information about those. So these are majors you can talk to your academic advisors about, your association deans, your orientation leaders will have more information about any of these. These are all College of Arts and Sciences majors. So they are looking at policy more from an academic or theoretical lens. There are the 2 politics department majors, government and foreign affairs. There's a specialized political philosophy, policy, and law major. PST is political and social thought. There are any number of global studies majors that touch on policy, from global development studies to public health to sustainability, security, and justice. All of those are available at the college. And you can study also at the Frank Batten School and study policy through our undergraduate major. You don't have to major in policy to eventually work in policy. So it's not like the architecture school where you go through a structured program so that you can earn credentials towards a license so you can practice. The truth of the matter is you're going to grapple with policy either implicitly or explicitly in whatever you go on to do next. It's also possible to combine majors and programs. You've probably already heard this. So for example, you could study Spanish and foreign affairs and then move on to a career in global development. You can design an interdisciplinary major at UVA. You can pick up a minor or 2. Really, the combinations are endless to explore policy and related fields further here. It's one of the great strengths of UVA as a school. And in fact, you can study anything at all and then come to Batten for a Master of Public Policy after you receive your undergrad degree. So lots and lots of lanes into this sector. The good news is you have a lot of time to explore all of these different options. Batten is an upper school at UVA, meaning students typically join one of our programs in their 3rd or their 4th year. As you know, this is the general model at UVA. You explore lots of different disciplines through a really rich liberal arts general education curriculum. And then for most majors, you declare or apply into them in your second year. At Batten, our programs, except for one, are application-based and are competitive. They focus on leadership, on policy, and equipping you with skills to create impactful, lasting change. So we really want to educate and train the next generation of policy and citizen leaders to act on behalf of the common good. And we do this through a unique focus on both public policy and leadership, which means you're going to get best-in-class knowledge and access to cutting-edge research about policy formation. You'll build some skills in data analysis, but we'll also help you cultivate a leadership portfolio that includes things like how to analyze group behavior, how to negotiate and navigate conflict, be a problem solver, be a good critical thinker, communicate effectively. It's a very practical degree that leads to a really wide variety of professional outcomes. And this is a bit of a differentiator from those other policy-related majors I mentioned in the college, which are more academic. At Batten, we really focus on implementation. So you're building real-world skills, you're getting a lot of applied knowledge. We are a pre-professional school, so we place a lot of emphasis on helping you build skills to get employed.
And speaking of employment, it's as if it was a natural transition. Students often ask, where can Batten take you after graduation? I know it can be a little mystifying just understanding what policy is. I know when I started at Batten 5 years ago, I was like, so what can you do with this degree? It's really helpful to kind of work backwards from our first destination. So that way you can see the types of careers that you might ultimately go on to if you choose the Batten School. At the end of the day, we have great employment outcomes across a wide variety of sectors. In fact, 100% of our BA graduates from the class of 2022 were employed or had a first destination like graduate school within 6 months of graduation. This is a typical and common metric that universities use to help measure where our students end up. And we're very proud of the fact that our own Batten Career Services team helps students find their ultimate dream first destination. While a lot of people probably think that our students can only go to DC and work on Capitol Hill, and granted, quite a few do end up in DC or work on Capitol Hill, many students go a lot of different directions. Roughly 50% of our graduates from our Master in Public Policy program end up in government roles. Our BA students do have a tendency to look at government roles, but their employment outcomes are a little more diverse, going across a really wide array of sectors, or ultimately going on to law school, graduate school, or other continuing education programs. Many of our undergraduates go into the private sector or consulting, both for the government and for different agencies. Our graduates enter direct government service, business, nonprofits, research institutions and think tanks, service organizations, and as I mentioned earlier, law school. In any given year, about 10% of our undergrads go directly to law school, but the number continues to grow after a few years of work experience. They're going to those T14 schools that you might be familiar with, such as UVA, NYU, Columbia, Duke, some of them on full ride scholarships, which I did not know existed for law school. I think the really wide variety of outcomes that you see really mirror the curriculum, where you get a very transferable skill set for a career in policy and law or business, or really anything else that you can think of, because you'll have those strong analytical skills, you'll be a competitive writer and have those project management skills to make sure that you can go on and do whatever you want. As I mentioned, top destination is Washington, DC, but we have students who go to New York and work on Wall Street, students who go West Coast and work on Silicon Valley, and we even have students, or our alumni, I should say, that are working abroad. You can see a sample of some of those industry areas listed there, but we have students who go into federal consulting with agencies like Deloitte and Booz Allen Hamilton, as well as more private consulting such as Goldman Sachs. We have the alphabet soup of federal agencies like DoD, DOJ, GAO, individuals who go on to think tanks like Center for Public Impact and American Enterprise Institute, other individuals that go to work in state and local government, like the New York City Mayor's Office, and a wide variety of other nonprofits like Teach for America. But really, I think what students ultimately get out of this program is that ability to go on and do a lot of different things. And so ultimately, our students join one of 4 programs that are open to students here at UVA, where you can earn a degree. The first degree is our Accelerated Master of Public Policy, in particular for those students interested in getting a jump start into a career in policy. Students typically apply for this program in their 3rd year, to begin it in their 4th year and finish it in 1 additional year. The key thing is you actually major in something other than our public policy major. So frequently we see students major in global studies or politics, economics, but we've had foreign languages, youth and social innovation, physics. So really the world is your oyster in terms of looking at an undergraduate discipline. But this program is really designed for those students interested in that policy expertise and analysis skills. I mentioned students typically apply for this program in the spring of your 3rd year. If you came in or are coming into UVA with a large number of credits from dual enrollment or AP or IB credits, and you're thinking about really maximizing your 4 years here at UVA, you can apply on an expedited timeline to complete both an undergrad degree and a graduate degree in 4 years. If that's the case, please come talk to us, because we want to make sure that you understand both the pros and cons associated with applying a little bit early. This program, because of those analysis skills, is a very heavily quantitative program. We want to make sure that you have the knowledge needed to advance a position using data, but you'll also be taking courses in behavioral economics, social psychology, and the policy areas that you would like to pursue. Ultimately, it's a professional degree with a rigorous deep dive in policy and data analysis for those who know right now that they want to directly influence the policy sphere. However, we also have an undergrad major if that accelerated master's program seems maybe a little more intense than what you're initially thinking about for your time here at UVA. This is more of a generalist curriculum, a very interdisciplinary look at the policy, more from the perspective of effective engagement with the world. This undergraduate major, students typically apply for in the spring of their 2nd year. And it includes coursework in policy and leadership, economic analysis, multidisciplinary contexts, and special topics or policy electives, where you can study all the policy areas that might be of interest to you, whether they be education policy, health policy, national defense and security, international development, and the list goes on and on. Ultimately, you end up being a good consumer of information. You'll have the public policy knowledge and skill set to have a robust participation in public life. However, if you have already mapped out your entire 4-year plan and you decide that you want to major in something other than policy, we also have 2 minors for you. The first of which is our public policy and leadership minor. Similar to our BA program, you apply for this one in the spring of your 2nd year. And stole my favorite line, that policy is everywhere. And we truly believe that students in our minor program, our policy minor program, come from almost, it feels like every single major at the university, whether that be something like engineering or business, to media studies, to biology, to foreign affairs, and like I said, every kind of topic area in between. We'd like to say that this minor gives you policy literacy, allowing you to make those connections between your undergraduate major and the policy areas that you wish to choose to pursue after graduation. Our other minor program is the social entrepreneurship minor. This is the one that Anne mentioned that is application-based, but it does admit every student into the program. So this is the one non-competitive program here at the Batten School. The social entrepreneurship minor is a pan-university program that allows you to take electives across many of the different schools at UVA. This is part of the much larger entrepreneurship program housed within the McIntyre School, but this particular social track housed here at Batten is for students interested in impact investing, entrepreneurial approaches to global development, equity-based leadership, and more creative and out-of-the-box thinking about solving today's toughest problems. You'll be using design thinking to think about those innovative solutions outside of those traditional, some might say clunky levers of the traditional policy space. And as I mentioned, this is the one program for students interested in studying this topic area, but is not a competitive-based program. So our program prerequisites across all of our programs, you can see that they all have just one or two program prerequisites listed there. For all of our policy-based programs, you can see that there is microeconomics. So this is a great class to try and get into your docket a little bit earlier into your time here at the university. We like to also note that all of these prerequisite classes are the only classes that you have to take prior to enrolling at Batten. You are welcome to take any of our other open coursework, but it's not a prerequisite for consideration through the application process. So if you're trying to plan out your next few semesters, I would recommend taking a note of all of these prereqs and making sure that you have the opportunity to take these courses. The good news is most of these courses are prerequisites for a lot of the other majors at UVA or general education requirements. So ultimately, these are credits that count somewhere, no matter where you end up. Our prerequisites can actually be taken all the way up until the semester you begin at Batten. So if you can't enroll in them this fall, don't worry, don't stress out. And in fact, in a minute, you'll hear that many of them are actually already full, unfortunately, for the fall. But you'll have to take microeconomics and social psychology for both our BA program and our minor program. We have a Batten-specific version of social psychology, LPPL 2600, called Foundations of Behavioral Science. If you are interested in our major program, you'll also have to take Intro to Public Policy, which, as you might imagine, introduces you to public policy and the way that we talk about issues here at the Batten School. For the SE minor, the only prereq that you have to take is ENTP 1010, the startup class, to gain access to the application and ultimately join that particular program. Because our MPP program is the most quantitative program that we have, you can see the prereqs are a little bit more quantitative in their approach, microeconomics and a calculus-based math. It is possible to use AP credit to fulfill these prereqs, but for the MPP in particular, we like to see that you take a math class here at UVA to demonstrate proficiency and readiness for graduate level quantitative work. So if you intend to use AP calculus or dual enrollment calculus, consider taking a statistics class here, like Stats 1100, Intro to Stats, Stats 2120, Intro to Statistical Analysis, and Stats 1601, Data Science with R. Although we use data here at Batten, you'll learn the basic building blocks associated with coding to be able to apply that to your time here at the Batten School. But I'll turn it back to Anne to talk about some advice.
So outside of the prerequisites, my general advice for your first couple of semesters at UVA is really to focus on fulfilling your general education curriculum and use the opportunity to explore, to take a course that you maybe never have had access to. It might spark something in you, you might fall in love with it, and it might completely set you off on a different path. That's really a really wonderful thing about the University of Virginia. There are so many classes like that. You never know what's going to click until you try. So take advantage of the really strong liberal arts curriculum here. Batten's general education curriculum is the same as the colleges. So keep plugging away at making progress towards fulfilling those requirements in your first 2 years. In particular, it's really wise to complete your foreign language before coming over to Batten. Once you are enrolled in the Batten School rather than the College of Arts and Sciences, you lose that priority registration to college courses that are offered by the College of Arts and Sciences. So it gets a little bit harder to enroll in language courses, particularly at the higher levels where they're smaller, more intimate classes. If possible, you should complete Batten's prereqs prior to the semester that you apply to Batten. Courtney noted you can take them all the way up until you would begin in Batten's program. However, if you take them in the fall, we will be able to take a look at those grades when it comes time to review your application and evaluate your application in the spring. And it's a really helpful data point to see your grades in those courses. Courtney also mentioned AP credit and the Excel. We do love to see a collegiate level stats course. If you are particularly interested in that track, not a requirement. There are other ways to show your quantitative proficiency, but if you're casting around for different courses, those stats courses are also often, they fulfill your general education requirements anyway. So they're a great course to have in your wheelhouse. And then finally, consider taking one of the Batten electives that I will tell you about in just a minute. You shouldn't take more Batten courses from a competitive standpoint, however. When it comes time to apply to the major, we don't look to see that you've taken a bunch of Batten courses. It's more a chance for you to explore topics that are interesting to you and to see whether the coursework is something that you enjoy and could be a good fit. You might, alternatively, you might have some more complex academic goals. Say you're super committed to Batten, you already know you want to major in Batten, and you also want to, say, study abroad or double major or double minor. That's a situation in which you might consider taking more Batten courses to clear some space in those final 2 years after you join the Batten school, so you can also achieve some of those other academic goals. Any Batten coursework that you take above the 3000 level can be applied towards our curricular requirements. But do keep in mind that there is a rule in the College of Arts and Sciences that you have to take 108 credits of the 120 required to graduate within the college. So if you end up staying in the college and not coming over to Batten, those Batten courses that you've taken might not count towards your in-college credit requirements. Just something to keep in mind. And of course, you can always take more than 120 credits. You just have to make sure you're logging 108 in-college credits. So here are the Batten courses that are being offered this fall. Remember, no competitive advantage to taking anything outside of the prereqs. What it will do for you is give you a sense of whether this is something you want to pursue further. So a couple of notes on these classes. LPPL 2100 is taught by Professor Tim Davis. He is an expert on resilience and group dynamics, leadership development. This is a 2000 level course, so it doesn't fulfill curricular requirements for Batten's major or minor. But it is a really great way to build some leadership and critical thinking skills. It also helps kind of ease the transition into college, talk a lot about the importance of constructing networks of support. It's a really cool class, and it really brings in some of Batten's leadership curriculum into the classroom in a way that's really digestible and really useful for students. LPPL 2600, Courtney noted that is Batten's flavor of social psychology. So that is essentially how interpersonal relationships affect individual behavior, affect group behavior, how those perceptions and interactions shape human action. LPPP 2200 is Introduction to Public Policy. That's a prereq for the major. It's part of the minor curriculum. You learn about policy formation. You learn how to write a policy memo, which you spend a lot of time doing at Batten. Unfortunately, it is full, but it will be offered again in the spring. And then you have more opportunities in your second year to take it as well. And then ENTP 1010, that is the startup course. It's also on a wait list at the moment. That's the class that opens up the social entrepreneurship minor track. This is a list of our electives. We call them special topics. This is where you can really dive into policy areas that are interesting to you. The first class is a core social entrepreneurship class. It's also an elective in the Batten Public Policy and Leadership major and minor. So it's a course that counts in lots of buckets. But you also see here courses in national security, in police community relations, in education policy. Our electives change semester by semester. So we also offer coursework in humanitarian aid and global development, in public health, in nonprofit management, international law and policy, management consulting. It's a really extensive list of policy areas that you can explore. This JFK class is a very cool class that's taught by Professor Larry Sabato. He runs UVA's Center for Politics. It's a study of President Kennedy's leadership through various policy challenges that the country faced during his presidency. But it's really remarkable to see how many of them are still really salient and shape policy debates today. It kind of brings the history into the current moment to show you how the policy landscape and conversations about policy have changed, or maybe not changed at all over, 70 years now, 60 years. I can give you more information about any of these courses. So if you want to know any more about them, I can pull up the course descriptions and we can talk about them further. So just ask in the Q&A, that would be fun. So that was a lot of information. You will absolutely have a chance to hear it again and again. This fall, we will resume our regular admissions events and programming. We can talk to you we hope we can talk to you during your orientation session. The very best way to stay plugged into our content during the academic year is actually to use this QR code, which directs you towards an inquiry form where you can enter your information, and it subscribes you for our weekly newsletter. The newsletter has info about events. It's got tips for application. It links to our blog where we post lots and lots of content. It lists important deadlines. It's really a wealth of information. In terms of opportunities to engage with us this fall, we host weekly open walk-in office hours where you can speak with a member of the admissions staff or a Batten ambassador who is a current student who can tell you more about their experience at Batten. We have daily virtual appointments. We have monthly information sessions and special events. Every fall we do Frankapalooza, which is a fun outdoor carnival to introduce students to our school. There are also, if you're here for the content, we have weekly Batten hours where we talk about the policy issues of the day. We bring experts and scholars, practitioners in to talk about policy. There are lots and lots of events that you will hear about through our newsletter if you subscribe. You can also reach out to me anytime. You see my personal email address. There's also the general email address at the bottom of this slide and our website address, so you can go explore some of our resources. So that's the extent of our kind of prepared content. I will now ask Courtney to open things up with a couple special guests for a little bit of a conversation, and then we're happy to answer any of your questions as well. So please do put those in the Q&A box.
Perfect. Well, special guests, you can now officially join us. This evening, we have the pleasure of being joined by two of our recent BA graduates from the class of 2023, Olivia and RJ. Both obviously just finished their time here at Batten, and we're already missing them. But we're hoping that they can help provide some additional information to you all about classes within Batten, a little bit more about their kind of academic experience. So as Anne mentioned, feel free and ask them some questions in the Q&A, but in order to give you some more context about our two panelists, RJ and Liv, do you mind just doing a general kind of introduction about your time generally at UVA, and then you can throw in what you were involved with here at Batten?
Yeah, thank you for the lovely introduction. Like Courtney mentioned, I just graduated this past May. It's already, I guess, almost 2 months now, or going on 2 months, moving quick. But yeah, my time at UVA, 2019 to 2023 had ups and downs, but I wouldn't trade it. I was very lucky and happy to find my way to the Batten School. And I really haven't looked back ever since. It's definitely been one of the major highlights of my UVA experience. And I'm surely gonna miss it. As she also mentioned earlier, me and Olivia are here as Batten ambassadors. And I had the pleasure of being a lead Batten ambassador this past school year, and it's a really great job, one of the best jobs I ever had with two great bosses. And yeah, and it's allowed me to, come back today and kind of share. I tried to stay involved at UVA. I was engaged with a lot of different mentoring organizations. I was the president of an organization called Collegiate 100, which did mentorship in the Charlottesville community. Like I said, I was also a Batten ambassador. I was a Legacy Link advisor. I was an OAAA peer advisor as well. I tried to make time for fun. I played a lot of intramurals, flag football. I'm a two-time cornhole champ. I'm not gonna flex, but I'm just gonna put that out there. But yeah, so yeah, really happy to be back and happy to answer y'all's questions.
And on top of all of those extracurriculars, you did the BA program and then a minor in history.
Oh,
No, you're good.
yeah.
You're out of practice.
I did do that. Yeah.
It's been too long. All right, Liv.
Thanks, Courtney. Just to echo RJ, pretty similar experience with very different highs and lows throughout my undergraduate experience. Pandemic had a huge role to play in that, but silver linings is I was able to find the Batten School when I was taking online classes. And again, like RJ, as when I got into it, I never looked back. Batten was definitely a very huge part of my third and fourth years. And there's a ton of ways to get involved in the Batten School, which is really great to build community and relationships with faculty and just your cohort, and also just really great networking opportunities for Batten students that have graduated. They're always willing to lend a helping hand and really like to see people go into the fields that they're in. My time at UVA, I was a 4-year member of club volleyball. I was involved in Greek life. I was vice president of the Global Development Organization. I was on the Batten Undergraduate Council as an internal committee member my 3rd year, and then 4th year, I took on the role of Batten Council Social Chair, which was a new position on the exec team. And I had a lot of fun doing that and sort of setting up some institutional memory for years to come, to plan like fun social events for the cohorts and have a chance to bond and get to know each other. I also was a Batten ambassador and a lead ambassador, which was an amazing opportunity to have. I'm really lucky that I was able to be a part of this team. And I had a second major in global development studies, which is a pretty popular crossover between Batten and global development studies, or even global studies more broadly.
All right, well, I can ask you all questions all day, but as a reminder, feel free and put some questions in the Q&A. I think one of the biggest differences is students are coming into UVA and exploring all of the different options is kind of getting a feel for classes and what kind of makes us different. So both of you obviously spent some of your time outside of Batten within the College of Arts and Sciences. So what to you stands out about the differences between, a College of Arts and Sciences class and a Batten class, or just generally, teaching styles, assignments, that sort of thing? I know you just finished all of that, so you definitely have some great wisdom to share about kind of classes and how they might be a little bit different than what they might be enrolled in their first and second year.
Yeah, I can start off with this question. So particularly in the required curriculum classes, not the special electives, in the Batten School, the main difference is I would say there's a lot of group work, which is really rewarding and it's really fun, because you get to meet a lot of different people and work with a lot of different people in your cohort that you wouldn't really get the opportunity to do in the college with larger classes. Another main difference I would say is the student to faculty ratio, which is something I really enjoyed, was the ability to connect more with professors who are experts and professionals in their fields, as well as the TAs who are typically Batten master students who also have a really great understanding of public policy and are learning relatively the same things, but more in depth and academically rigorous level, being a master's level. But it is just a really great opportunity to be able to work one-on-one more so at a school where if you're in these larger classes, can kind of feel like a number sometimes. Not to say I didn't really enjoy my classes that I took in the college, sorry. But it was, yeah, I'd say those are the two main differences. And then in special electives, if you're not in Batten, it's a really great opportunity to get a very specific public policy lens. There's sort of this framework that is used throughout all of the Batten courses, which is really interesting to see connecting to the other classes that you may be taking.
Yeah, I think I would echo a lot of that. I think for me, the biggest was just kind of how I was a different student first year versus third year. When I came to UVA, it was a really big adjustment for me from like a small town. So I remember my first huge lecture. I really just felt like a fish in a large ocean. I didn't really feel, I guess, that emboldened to maybe speak out or engage in the class. Versus when I got into Batten School, for a lot of the reasons Liv mentioned, it was just a lot easier to be engaged because, for one, our core class sizes were about 40 to 50. And you were seeing it was all people that you knew and got to engage with on a daily basis in the Batten community. So it was a lot easier to kind of speak within class and like work with each other because we were all familiar with each other, knew each other. And then also, like she mentioned, with the student to faculty ratio, it's really, I think, easier to really get to know your professors within Batten, because you just see them so often. You'll see them around Garrett, and they're all like really engaging. Like they're very passionate about their subjects. So like they will talk about them. You can meet with them anytime outside of class and they'll be happy to talk with you. They encourage discussion and speaking in class and coming on office hours, which is a lot, like, felt really good because for me, first year in those large lectures, I didn't always feel like I could go to office hours. It kind of felt like a daunting task, and it didn't feel that way at all in Batten. I felt comfortable really speaking to any of my professors. So yeah, I think those would be that would probably be the biggest thing. There was something else I was gonna say, and my mind is blanking. But I think that's a good leave off point. If it comes back to me, I'll share it. But
Yeah, feel free, hop in anytime, RJ. I have just one more question for you two before we turn to some of the questions in the Q&A. What, now that you are a month out, month or 2 months out, what was maybe your favorite Batten class? And what might have been the most challenging Batten class that you had to complete over your time?
Liv, did you want to go first?
It doesn't matter. I can hop in. I think that my answer for that question is going to be the same class. It was the most challenging, but it was also my favorite. And that was Professor Martin's institutional and political context of public policy, which is, he's teaching a different course that's similar, which is called Engaging Policy Communities, which is required in the new curriculum. Definitely a very challenging class, but I thoroughly enjoyed having Professor Martin. He is a very seasoned professor at the Batten School and at the larger UVA community. And he does a lot of community engagement work with the broader Charlottesville community and really ties that into the curriculum, which I really appreciated. And for me specifically, it was sort of this class that bridged my global development studies curriculum with public policy. So we were getting exposed to scholarly articles and just different resources that normally you wouldn't be exposed to in your other Batten classes, talking about power and dynamics of how power can structure public policy. So that was really interesting for my third year.
I think for me, most fun and enjoyable class would be RMDA, Research Methods, Data Analytics with Professor Dan Player. For those of you that end up in Batten and when y'all eventually have them, you're gonna love them. Tell them RJ is still trying his best with STATA. It's not a joke. But that was a challenging class, but it was really fun because he just made it very approachable. I was terrible with statistics going into it. I took a statistics class my first year. I won't say my grade, but you know, so I went in with that class like very nervous, and he eased it. He was very approachable, very manageable, just great professor. Challenging class, I would agree with Liv. I would say it was definitely context with Professor Martin. That was probably the first Batten class I took that really like made me realize, okay, this is like where I need to be as far as the school, because the things we kind of talked about and kind of grapple with, for me, it was like, it was hard, but it was like, you know, if you're really serious about going into the world and you know, being a leader and really, you know, being in policy, these are the things you really need to be mindful of, you know, like Liv said, power, the power dynamics, how you're affecting people, you know, how you're wielding policy. It was just a very, I felt, important class, very challenging. It was hard, but it was very worth it in the end.
Both of you selected courses I was not expecting. Liv, for reference, spent a week in Northern Ireland as a partner for capstone with Professor Martin. So I was assuming you'd at least pick that one, and RJ would have never guessed you would have picked research methods and data analysis, but it just shows that you get to take a lot of different courses. One of the questions in the chat, I know you can't answer because you were both in the BA program, but what's kind of a typical course load or time spent outside of the classroom in some of those Batten courses? Because with the minor, typically students take just 1 or 2 Batten classes a semester. Biology is one that we see frequently paired with our minor program, but what's kind of, you know, the out of class, you know, expectation in terms of, are you reading 200 books? Are you writing like 20-page papers? So what's kind of a typical course load that you might see?
So I saw the question particularly pertaining to the biology major with the minor. Definitely not the first to do that. Like Courtney said, that is definitely one of the options to supplement seeing public policy in sort of a scientific lens, which is really interesting. In terms of work, it is definitely, you get out what you put in. So I'll say that, and I know that's not a very clear answer, but in terms of like a quantitative answer, I would say that on the more difficult courses, you would be spending probably, or at least for me, 5 to 7 hours a week. And that's with readings, doing your assignments. And then if the classes that are not as reading heavy or as intensive, I would say probably about 3 to 4 hours a week. And that is just coming from someone who was in the BA program, and the amount of work I would put in terms of how long it would take me to read. I wasn't very good at skimming. I am a very like reread every sentence, but if you're good at skimming the readings, that is, the professors will also tell you like this is one that you can skim, but it's not an unmanageable workload by any means, especially if you pick your classes carefully and don't overextend yourself. But just know that a Batten class is, if someone tells you it's easy, it's not going to be like just you get an A kind of class. You're still going to have to put some work in, which is a very rewarding sense of accomplishment and work, I would say.
Yeah, I guess I would just add to like, don't expect so much, like for one, yeah, you can't escape the readings. Most of the classes are definitely going to have a lot of readings, very thorough readings, some that you may have to like go back and kind of reread to really grasp. I wouldn't say expect like a lot of like busy work. Like some classes did have weekly assignments, but we also had courses where maybe there was like one pretty heavy memo early on, and then like another one kind of at a midway point, and then you kind of wrap the class off with like another thorough memo. And kind of like I mentioned earlier, memos are just a certain style of paper writing, which they will teach y'all when you get to that point. But yeah, you definitely, like you said, you do have to put the work in. Like it's time consuming. It's not something I would recommend holding off to the last minute, but it's doable. It's especially when you're in that community surrounded by other people that are also hardworking and in that same kind of journey as you. You get motivated, really a lot through your peers. At least I did.
Perfect. And I think that's great advice generally, because there are going to be courses that you thrive in and they work for you. Others that might take a little bit more challenge, but as Liv mentioned, the more you put in, the more you're going to get out. And this is coming from someone who's far removed from undergrad at this point. I understand that the more you put in, the more you get out. I'm going to take, because I know we're approaching the end, but certainly still time for some questions. Kind of what advice would you give just someone who's getting here at UVA and are trying to see if Batten is kind of the right fit for you? So that way, ultimately, if they do decide Batten is the right fit, they're ultimately a really strong candidate. I know you guys have excellent advice on that piece.
I think for me, because I'll say, so I came into UVA not even knowing that the Batten School was here. I discovered Batten during my first year. So the fact that y'all are here right now, you're ahead of the game, at least in respect to me. But honestly, things like this are a really good way, engaging with the admissions staff, engaging with Batten ambassadors or alumni, and just kind of hearing those kind of anecdotal stories went a long way for me. I like personal aspects. I like, hearing what people went through and seeing how I can relate. Garrett is an open building. I would encourage you all to stop by, especially even during the school year. You can study there. You can, maybe stop and get some coffee. It's just a nice community. Anybody in there will be happy to talk to you about their experiences. It's just a great atmosphere. But I would also say, don't go into UVA. I wouldn't say make Batten like your life. You know what I mean? Especially in that first year. Be mindful of the prereqs and try to get those done. But I would say still take time to kind of find yourself. You're starting college. You only get to do this one time and it goes so much faster than y'all think. So, really do things that you're passionate about, see how it relates to Batten. But don't feel like you have to make you relate to that, if that makes sense. Probably could word that better, but yeah, I'll pass it to Liv.
Yeah, so advice for like getting into Batten, involved in Batten. Honestly, my biggest recommendation would just to be like take a Batten class if you can fit it in your schedule. That's my best advice, is seeing sort of what the Batten environment is, what the faculty is like, what sort of this framework is that you're learning public policy through. You can obviously be exposed to that in the prerequisites. Introduction to public policy is a really, really, as it is, introduction course to get this sort of idea of what Batten is. That sort of thinking and writing style is going to be used in your other classes. So that's something to keep in mind. If you don't necessarily like doing that, that's okay. But just to be aware of that. It's not everything that Batten is though, however. So there is a lot of different lenses of public policy. So if you're a biology major, you could take some environmental public policy course as a special topic. And that's a really great way to see sort of this like connection between what you're interested in and the public policy lens. So those are just sort of my recommendations in terms of seeing if Batten is the right fit for you, or even getting involved. You're taking the course, you're interacting with your TA, with your professor, and building genuine relationships is also just another positive aspect of taking those Batten courses.
Yeah, I think, taking that intro policy course, as you mentioned, is, obviously satisfying the prereq, but getting you kind of in that atmosphere to see if it's right. and RJ hit on a good point. Get interested and involved in the things that you're super passionate about, whether that's I'm going to foster kittens through the Charlottesville SPCA, and then ultimately that leads to something else, or interning with the Legal Aid Justice Center, or just being on the Ultimate Frisbee team. We want to see that you are getting out and doing something, because you can lead from anywhere. So ultimately you have the opportunity to kind of engage a little bit more. And did you want to talk any about kind of the competitive nature of, the application process?
Yeah, so the admissions process for the major is definitely our most competitive program. So the admittance rate is about 50 to 60% in a given cycle. We admit classes of 120 students, so we're pretty small. By design, we are intentionally small to offer that really high touch experience, your access to your faculty, your access to career services. So that keeps those numbers lower. I would say though, for admissions rates into the accelerated Master of Public Policy, that tends to be a self-selecting group of students who know they really want to engage with policy really deeply. So they have laser-like focus on that particular professional goal. So they tend to be a really successful applicant pool. They've aligned their courses with those interests. Maybe they've taken on research opportunities or internships that relate to policy. So that admittance rate is usually much, much higher in the 70% to 80% or even up from there. In terms of kind of what we're looking for in an applicant, how to be successful, the good news is there's really no one typical applicant. There is no kind of GPA cutoffs, no extracurriculars we expect to see. We really, Courtney hinted at this, we really want to see your passion and your engagement, the ways that you're interested in policy and seeking out opportunities to explore those interests. We want to see academic growth over time, but that's not, a hard and fast highest in my class. We expect blips along the way. We want you to explore. Some classes might not might not work out. It might be something you explore and then say, oh no, that was a horrible experience. I don't want to do that. We really encourage that level of exploration. So our evaluation process is intentionally very, very holistic, where we're looking for the kind of balance of strengths and things that make you you, that you bring to the table to determine an admissions decision.
Right. So I think we've heard really great advice about what to really focus on over your first few semesters here at UVA in terms of getting involved both inside and outside the classroom. 30 seconds, which I know is very hard for both of you because you both love to talk. What kind of general advice or lasting memories of Batten do you want to kind of impart to these individuals who maybe starting tomorrow are beginning their own UVA journey?
I'll go. I would say, I always tell people my biggest takeaway from Batten definitely came from the people. The people I got to meet, the people I got to engage with. So whether it's Batten, whether it's another UVA community, when you come to this school, really, really engage, in a way that's meaningful to you. Life, it always boils down to people. So when you're here, follow your passions, engage with the things that are meaningful to you. Don't be scared to try new things. Really try to soak in every moment. From someone that unfortunately had their college career kind of shortened, I promise, it's easy to take each day for granted. But each day goes by faster than the last. So, really get out there and just take UVA for all that it can give you. And if you do find your way to Batten, engage in that Batten community, because it was definitely, again, one of the most enjoyable moments of my UVA experience. People like Liv, who started entire programs for us to continue year after year, and our first Batten ball, and I could go on. I have 30 seconds though. So enjoy it, enjoy the ride. Y'all will all be great. And congratulations to all of you for coming to UVA.
Yeah, RJ said it best. He was actually my first friend at UV in Batten. So there's always, you're gonna meet people in Batten in sort of every aspect of your life, and you're not even gonna realize it. Even post-graduation. Yeah, reflecting now, back on my time, it's gonna be challenging. If you are in the Batten School, it's gonna be challenging, but it's gonna be worth it. And you're gonna meet some friends that you're gonna have for life, and you're gonna make these amazing relationships and connections that you're gonna cherish. And Batten really gave me the opportunity to do that. And I genuinely believe that this is a program that you can't fake it until you make it. You have to genuinely be interested and passionate about what you're doing, regardless of how that relates to public policy. But yeah, this is definitely feel like a place that would wants you if you want it. And that is sort of how I found my place at UVA, especially during a very trying time like the pandemic, where it was very isolated. This was the community that I had. And I'm just so thankful to have had this opportunity. And yeah, again, congratulations on making it to UVA, and come visit Garrett Hall sometime and get involved.
Perfect. Well, that is probably the shortest why Batten piece of advice that both of you have given over your info sessions the last 2 years. So I'm very proud that you have nailed it right here at the end. I know Batten will certainly miss both of you as you go, both actually up to Northern Virginia, one with College Advising Corps and one working out in the consulting space. But as Anne and Sarah mentioned, we are doing information sessions during each of the orientation sessions. There may be some guest appearances, but with the summer, many of our students are off interning, so it's more of a chance to engage a little bit more with Anne and I to learn more about the programs. Be sure to check the schedule to see the times and locations. Most are here in Garrett Hall, so you get to see our beautiful space, but definitely double check your schedule there. As Anne mentioned, use that inquiry form on our website if you missed that QR code to sign up and learn a little bit more about our programs. It's a great chance over your first 2 years here at UVA to see if this is the right place for you. But we applaud your interest in our school so early. As RJ mentioned, you don't have to know about us right away, but if you do, it gives you a better chance to engage with our community. But thank you all for joining this evening.